welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my micronutrient mini-series. If you guys are new around here, my name is Becca. I'm a registered dietitian and I make lots of content here on my channel centered around nutrition, health and wellness, non-toxic living, intuitive eating, all kinds of good stuff. And in this video specifically, we are going to be talking all things vitamin D. So let's just get right into it. So vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, meaning in order to be absorbed in the body, it needs to be accompanied by fat. Vitamin D is a doozy, you guys, meaning it has so many functions that it plays a role in throughout the body. Vitamin D is critical for so many different things, and the more research that we find or are coming out with, we're finding that vitamin D is actually linked, or deficiency of vitamin D is linked to all different kinds of diseases, and that is because vitamin D is important for so many different functions throughout the body. For example, one of the biggest ones is bone health. So in order to absorb calcium into the body, we need vitamin D. It is also critical in the regulation of calcium and phosphorus in the body, which is critical for the mineralization of our bones. It is necessary for the regulation of osteoclasts and osteoblasts, which are what break down and build our bones. So for the growth of our bones, rebuilding of our bones, we need vitamin D. And then there are a whole other host of functions that vitamin D is critical for. One is just the growth and proliferation of all of our cells, and cells are needed for everything all over our body. So vitamin D is really important. Vitamin D is also necessary for T cells, which are some of our biggest or most important immune cells. So vitamin D plays a role in our immune system. Vitamin D is also necessary for proper, healthy neuromuscular function. It also helps to decrease inflammation throughout the body. And another important role is it is necessary to activate certain enzymes in the body, which help us metabolize drugs and toxins to break them down and make them safe and get them out of our body. So the vitamin D that we consume from food sources or supplements has to be converted once it's in the body. So first it is converted to 25 hydroxy vitamin D, and then from there it is converted to 125 dihydroxy vitamin D. So this specific form of vitamin D is actually the active form. It's actually also a hormone, and it's also referred to as calcitriol. So when we hear about all the amazing benefits and functions and roles of vitamin D, we're actually talking about the hormone calcitriol. Now, when it comes to vitamin D levels in the body, the best way for us to test for our vitamin D status is actually really easy. We can do so through a blood test, and actually what we're testing for is not that hormone, it is the 25 hydroxy vitamin D. That serum concentration of that specific form of vitamin D is how we can test our levels, and you can easily see with a blood test if you have adequate levels. Food sources of vitamin D are actually not that plentiful. Fatty fish are one of the best sources. Cod liver oil is a tremendous source of vitamin D. It's like off the charts, and that's why a lot of people actually consume it or drink cod liver oil in small amounts. You can also find vitamin D in liver, like beef liver. There's some in cheese and fortified milk. And you can also find some vitamin D in egg yolks as well. But like I said, when it comes to food, there aren't a ton of really rich sources of vitamin D because we are actually meant to get, for the most part, vitamin D from the sun. So when we are exposed to sunlight, specifically UVB rays, we can actually synthesize in our skin vitamin D. Now, there are obviously some things that will affect our ability to absorb UVB rays and therefore make vitamin D. For example, cloud cover will cut down the UVB rays significantly. Sitting behind glass, if you're behind a window or a windshield in a car, UVB rays cannot penetrate through them, so you're not going to get any vitamin D from that kind of sun exposure. Sitting in the shade, of course, is going to cut down significantly on those UVB rays. Skin color can have effect too, and then also, of course, wearing SPF, wearing sunscreen. Sunscreen blocks UVA and UVB rays, so if you are, completely covered in sunscreen, you are completely shielding the UVB rays and therefore are not able to synthesize vitamin D. Now, when it comes to recommendations of how long you should spend time in the sun, fully exposed without any sunscreen and all of that, it's kind of tough to come up with really succinct guidelines because it really just depends on the person, the location, the time of day, even skin color, whether or not they're wearing sunscreen, if it's cloudy. All of these things can affect, like I said, our ability to get UVB ray exposure and therefore make vitamin D. But the general recommendation that's kind of like a good baseline to go off of is spending anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes outside between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. To get some sun exposure, and doing this about 2 times per week. On average, if you're doing that, you're probably getting sufficient levels of vitamin D. But again, like I said, there are a lot of factors that can affect how well we're actually able to synthesize it. Now, there is actually a really cool app. There is a researcher, his name is Dr. Hollick, and he is like one of the top researchers when it comes to vitamin D supplementation and vitamin D functions within the body. I actually learned about him when I was in my postgrad, and he is a real interesting guy. I highly recommend looking him up if you are interested in vitamin D, because his research is pretty incredible. But he is obsessed with vitamin D, and he is all for getting vitamin D from the sun when possible, but he knows that there are definitely limitations to that that can affect it. So he actually came out with an app. It's called D Minder, and you basically can put in like your location, and it knows like the weather, and it will basically tell you about how much vitamin D you're able to synthesize based on a certain amount of times that you're outside, depending on the time of the year, location, and all of that. So that is just like a really cool, handy tool that I wanted to pass on to you guys that I thought was really awesome. And it might just help you gauge like the amount of vitamin D that you're getting based on, you know, the time you're spending outside. So that might just help you learn about how much time you specifically need to get the vitamin D from the sun that's adequate for you. When it comes to deficiency of vitamin D, it is mainly linked to bone health. Like I mentioned earlier, we're finding that more and more diseases are linked to inefficient or insufficient levels of vitamin D. However, the most classic vitamin D deficiencies are rickets and osteomalacia, which is the exact same disease. Rickets is just the childhood form, and osteomalacia is the form in adults. And this is basically when you just have really, really weak bones. You might see like bow-legged, if you look up rickets, you'll see pictures of like bow-legged children. And that's just because the bones have not properly formed. There isn't enough vitamin D to build the bones up to adequate strength, and they are just super weak. Supplementation is definitely possible with vitamin D, and it is often recommended. I am a big proponent of vitamin D supplements. I take them myself. In the summertime, when I'm getting lots of sun exposure, I'm way more lax, but in the winter, I do try and take them because I get very little time outside in the sun. So the minimum amount to supplement when it comes to vitamin D is 400 IU a day. A lot of different researchers and doctors and dietitians will recommend like much higher amounts than that. The upper limit that you don't really want to exceed necessarily is 4,000 IU. Again, I still see some recommendations that go over that, but the best thing that you can do if you are wondering if you are getting enough vitamin D and if you have adequate levels, you can do a simple blood test. You can ask your doctor to check your vitamin D status, and then you can go from there. Based on your status, you can figure out, especially if you're using that D Minder app, you can figure out a regimen that will work for you to get those levels back up into a very, sufficient level. Okay guys, that is it for vitamin D, a little snapshot for you. I hope that you guys found this video helpful. I hope that you enjoyed learning about vitamin D. It is one of my personal favorite vitamins. I think it is super fascinating, but that is it for this video. Make sure to subscribe so you stay tuned to all of my other micronutrient mini videos I will be coming out with. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!